Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the world you may be in, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. This is the New Cosmic Knowledge Channel. And of course, this man needs no introduction anywhere in the civilized world. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Rex Bear. Rex, I know that you just moved to Colorado. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Did Grandma come? Are there still sandwiches? Are there still cookies?
Okay, so Grandma is on a year-long bingo cruise ship. So she's having the time of her life. I said, okay, Grandma, it's time for you to take a cruise around the world. She's going to Antarctica. She's winning bingo tournaments and she's making cookies. Halo, but you got to get on the cruise.
Oh my. So you are cookieless and sandwichless at this point.
Something like that. But I do have lots of really cool artwork behind me in Southern Colorado. As you can see, I mean, just look at that. Look at that. I got to
tell everybody again where that cool artwork comes from, Rex.
Oh, hey, I've got a good friend, Brady Shalley, that actually makes all of this incredible magic behind me. She is just one of the most fascinating artists that I've ever met. She's a good friend of mine. Brady Shalley, Infinite Connections.
Excellent, excellent. And so you're loving the new garage, it looks like.
Yeah, I went from Grandma's garage to I don't know, whose garage is this? I'm not really sure, but they don't mind me staying here. So
excellent, excellent. You know, Rex, everybody always sees the great content you put out. You know, everybody always sees all the many things that you talk about. But one thing that we don't really ever talk about too much is Rex Bear. And about 3 years ago, I had George Norrie on with me. And George is kind of the same way. Everybody hears George talk and hears George talk about things, but nobody really knows too much about George. Rex, how long have you been in this game, so to speak? It's not a game, it's very serious, but how long have you been in this?
My whole life. I mean,
your whole life.
I was born asking questions. You know, I was born in like as a miniature Fox Mulder. Like I can remember experiences I had back when I was in my crib. Like I thought I was looking at life-size Star Wars figures. And I remember later in life, I asked my parents, like, did we have life-size Star Wars figures growing up? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, I remember in our first house we lived in the crib, I remember looking at these life-size Star Wars figures. They look like the characters out of Return of the Jedi. And they were just staring at me and I was just staring at them. So I guess if I go back in my mind, that was the first fringe experience that I can remember having. Now, hey, maybe it was just a very vivid dream that I remember from when I was about 1.5 years old. I don't know. Could have been
So
swamp gas from Yellowstone.
Are you toying with us, or did this really take place?
No, it really did. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, there could have been somebody that broke into my parents' house when I was 1.5 years old, and they put 3 Star Wars characters, life-size Star Wars characters in front of my crib that just stared at me for a couple hours. That makes logical sense, right? And then they picked them up and they left. But I don't know what it was, man. It was weird. Because if you go back to Return of the Jedi,
right?
The Return of the Jedi, where there are those 3, they were playing instruments, Jabba the Hutt scene. There's those 3 interesting looking beings playing instruments. That's kind of that's the memory that I have, kind of these things. They were just kind of sitting up at the crib. And I don't really remember them as grays or reptiles. Somebody said they could be mantis beings. I don't know what they were. They were definitely there. I remember seeing something, but I don't know. But that's the first memory that I have that's like, wow, that is interesting. But my whole life has been a trip.
So you've had a number of what we would call paranormal or out of the normal experiences then, huh?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, when I was about 27 approximately, I had my first out-of-body experience that I can remember. And I wasn't trying to have an out-of-body experience. I was going to sleep, popped out of my body. At that particular time in my life, I was, you could say very Christian. I prayed to Jesus every night, read through the Bible multiple times, New Testament multiple times, Revelation more than any book. But I pop out of my body as I'm falling asleep. And this was when I lived in the Northwest. And it just freaked me out because I pop out and I can see everything and I can see my body. And I'm just like, whoa. And so I got so scared that I went back into my body and I woke up and I walked around a little bit, went to the bathroom, shook it off. And then I went back to sleep again and I did it again.
Wow, you did it again.
It just freaked me out. Yeah. And since that point, that really gave me an inspiration to look outside even more of the box. But geez, I can go back to when I was in my early 20s, and I'm 40 now. When I was in my early 20s, I was talking to people about pyramids on Mars and the face that the Viking orbiter picked up that looked like a giant Sphinx face. And when I was, a teenager, 16 years old, I was talking about how there's organizations that control virtually everything you eat, touch, taste, smell, think, feel, experience, learn, watch on TV, hear on the radio. And I don't even know where I got this information. And now we can confirm a lot of this information with the internet, because we can take that data. And you know, when you hear someone say, oh, where'd you hear that? Oh, I heard it on the internet. Well, you know, everything's true on the internet. Yeah, I'm a 7-foot model on the internet. I'm from France. I get it. But you can take, everything's connected to the internet now. So you can take the internet and you can research files from alphabet agencies. You can research scientific documents, white papers, analysis data, etc. And there is plenty of data and proof that there's now 5 corporations. There used to be 6. There's 5 corporations that control over 90 something, like 93, 94% of the media. So I knew about this back when I was just a teenager, and I don't really know how I knew this kind of stuff. But I also remember when I was a teenager, I was 15. I used to hang out at this coffee shop. And it was like a hippie coffee shop, you know, and sometimes I'd left school and go hang out with my friends. And
but were you a hippie, Rex, or was just a hippie coffee shop?
I did shower, but hippies are cool. You know, I mean, I guess you could say a modern hippie. Colorado, have you heard the slogan in Colorado? The new bumper sticker they're going to have in Colorado is hippies with guns. Hippies with guns. But anyway, you got bears out there you got to watch out for. I've literally got bears in my backyard. So not only, you know, do I have bears in the house, but I've got bears in my backyard. But anyway, where's oh yeah. So when I was a teenager, I remember this guy started coming around this coffee shop, and he started talking about the mark of the beast. And he started talking about how in the future there's going to be a new world order and everybody's going to get microchipped. And if you don't get microchipped, you're going to have to go into a FEMA camp. And if you don't go into a camp, they're going to cut your head off right there because the Bible says so. And he was trying to get us all to like go to this place in New Mexico. He's like, there's this place in New Mexico that you can go to. And, you know, and I remember watching these movies and like these documentaries and stuff back when I was about that age. And a bunch of us, man, I'm having some flashbacks here. We're watching these videos about the New World Order. And you know, remember when George Bush said in that meeting in the 90s, he's like, this is a new world order. And the way that the media spins, or the way that the producers and the directors put together these videos, they were able to spin all this stuff and really just freak you out with that Christian mindset. So I was indoctrinated with a lot of, you know, end of world mind control programming, I think when I was younger. But the interesting thing is too, even before I met him, I had a friend back in the day that his mom used to work for the FBI. And she told him all the stuff that this guy was telling me. So I had multiple people in my life and multiple experiences kind of bringing me back to this new world order system. So it's really bizarre, I guess. Maybe it's the universe throwing things my way to say, you know, just think about it. I mean, it's literally, I mean, look at the hair standing up my arm right now. These flashbacks I'm having, you're making me relive things that I haven't lived in 20 years. It's kind of spooking me out a little bit, but anyway, so yeah, I went through a lot of that programming, kind of broke out of it. And then when I was, you know, I've had a lot of careers in my life, but a lot of them have been sales based or customer service based. And, that when I was in my mid 20s, I got an opportunity to work for a Fortune 100 company. And, you know, I'm working with big wigs that are wearing, you know, $700 shoes, $3,000 suits. They're driving Porsches and Audis and you know, making big bucks. They're making more money than doctors. And I was like, wow, this is just incredible. And I get into the industry and I'm way out of my league. And I've always been good at what I've done in the past. But now I'm working with people that are like Formula One, you know, it's like the Formula One racing of cells, just the best of the best of the best, the 0.1% of the 0.1%. And I'm learning all this stuff and about, you know, psychology and people and how to present conversations in a specific way to lead people in specific directions. And a lot of the stuff that I learned there made me realize how much stuff has been used against us our whole lives.
Absolutely.
And all the conditioning and mind control and programming. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to learn for myself so I know what they're doing to us. And I went on a very deep spiritual journey and research. I mean, I was researching 8, 10, 12 hours a day to the point to where it was just, I had to rip myself off of the research, because like pull myself away from the computer, you know, rip myself off the computer desk, because it was too much. And I confirmed a lot of the stuff that I was warned about, but in a different sense. Now I look at it, I don't necessarily look at it. And so the Bible puts some great things together, and the New Testament, Revelation, but it's also very symbolic. So you can take a passage out of Revelation and you can link it to a million different things. You can, and like you can link it to the past, you can link it to the present, you can link it to the future because of the way that it's written. And that's what's so beautiful about the Bible and the New Testament is the way that it's put together. It's timeless. You can look at it 1,000 years from now and still say, okay, that's going to relate to today because time is cyclical. Things happen in cycles. So it's really just been a journey. But then I start working with these people, and I'm just way over, out of my league. And I'm like, I got to keep up with these guys and gals. Otherwise, I'm not going to have a job. So I started doing research into psychology and neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, conversational hypnosis, and started to research the occult and mysticism. And I was able to just put all this information together and symbols. And then when I had that out of body experience, when I was in I think I was, like I said, about 27, and I lived in the Northwest, I had this out of body experience. I do it again. And then I start to research how to have an out of body experience. I start to research more occult. When I say occult, I just mean hidden knowledge, information that you're not going to find in the Bible or the New Testament. And I just, my mind just expanded. And since then, I've really been able to break out of, I think one of the biggest conspiracies, Jeff, is the religion conspiracy. You have to believe these specific scriptures that have been written and retranslated and passed on from multiple generations, etc. You have to believe it as fact based upon what somebody's interpretation tells you. And you can talk to 100 pastors, you can talk to 100 bishops. They're all going to have 100, there's going to be 100 different opinions on God and heaven and hell. They're going to have a lot of the same similarities, but they're all going to be different. So I even look at, religion is like, you look at these pastors and these preachers, they're very good salespeople. And if they believe in their hearts what they're doing, then, hey, that's okay. If you're a good salesman, you better believe what you're selling, right? Absolutely. So I get it. And spirituality is much higher than just physical beings. So I respect that. I appreciate that. And if that gets you closer to God, that's awesome. And when I broke out of this paradigm, this mind control religion paradigm, it was very difficult for me, Jeff. I was lost for many years, and I'm still finding myself on a daily basis. But it was very difficult because this person, this deity that I had prayed to my whole life, then when I break out of this paradigm, it's like, well, wait a second, is that being even real? Is what I've been taught about this being even real? It's very sad. It's like you lose a part of, like something that's very important to you. And so it's been very difficult. It's been very dark. It's been very enlightening at the same time. I've had some experiences before where I felt like I was in hell, almost like I was stuck inside of I guess if you think of the archons, who are the archons? Who is the Yama? The Yama, the Lord of Death, the one that oversees the will of destinies and karma and life. For example, the Yama is right there. If you can see behind me, the Yama and the will of destiny. That's a modern version that Brady and I put together. She painted it. I came up with the concepts and the different parts. But I feel like I actually experienced the Yama consuming me once. And oh man, it was so scary, Jeff. I felt like I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything unless it allowed me to. And I'm in my room, I'm laying down, I'm by myself, it's dark. And then when I'm trying to go out of my body, but instead it's like I went inside of something. And when it happened, then there's other people around me, and they're all laying down, and like we're all there. And we can only move when this thing lets us move. And it's like all of a sudden we're in like this stadium. And then if you've ever been in a stadium when you're allowed to do the wave, and so when it was my turn, I could move. It was kind of like that concept. And then when I came out of it, it was like a Total Recall in the scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger he's dressed up as a girl to get through customs. So he's got this weird like robotic suit on. And one of the security guards comes up to him and he goes, "So did you bring in any fruit?" And he starts malfunctioning, and he's like, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden his face and his whole body just like opens up. It's like, it was like that when I came out. So I felt like I went into a place I wasn't supposed to go into. I learned something I wasn't supposed to learn, and then I came out of it, and I'm at a higher level of consciousness. But it's very frightening to think about. It's like one of the most exceptional experiences, frightening and exciting experiences I've ever had in my life. I had another experience like that once where I did the same thing. I meant to go out of my body, and I went back into this really dark place. And it was like I was going in through different cycles. I literally felt like I was going through these cycles in the Wheel of Destinies. And there are these, I don't know if they're my guardian angels or just very guardians of some sort, because when I would get down into the lowest part, they would say, don't come back here. Don't come back here. And I would feel like I was stuck again, and I couldn't move. And I was in this place that was timeless, that I was going to be stuck there forever. But then I started to come out of it, and I was like, oh, wow, this is exciting. This is exciting. And these beings were like, don't come back. Don't come back. Don't do this again. Don't do this again. And then I would come out of it, and then I would come back. And this whole thing only lasted about 10 minutes each time. It only lasted 5-10 minutes. Felt like it was forever when I was in it. But as I was coming back, and then I'd go and I'd see him again, I'd go into this dark place. And I was like, oh man, don't come back. Don't come back. And there's like cyclical. And finally it ended. But to make a long story short, several months later, I was going to do the same thing. And I went on a forum, and I met, I was chatting on this forum that I used to go to all the time. There's all these people there that I used to talk to about conspiracies and stuff. And there's this one guy there that was talking, because you could also do voice. And he sounded like he was like handicapped or retarded. And people were making fun of him. And I knew something was up. Something like happened to him. And then he started talking about how the experience that he had. Okay. So those 2 times that I'm talking about, I have never officially said this before, but I'll go ahead and say it on this show. Cause I don't, it's not something that I felt like it was important to bring it up. But the first time I had the out of body experience when I was 27, I wasn't on any drugs, wasn't on anything whatsoever. The times when I went into like these very dark places, I did something that it was legal. It's totally legal. You could buy it at a head shop. It's called Salvia Divorum or something like that. And it was like, I guess the best, imagine taking a sheet of acid at once. I mean, it was just so intense, but it hits you in just like, it lasts like 5-10 minutes. And to make a long story short, I was going to do it again. The time I was going to do it again, I went online to this forum, and I met this guy that was just, you could tell his voice was messed up. He sounded like he was handicapped. And he started talking about salvia and how that's what screwed him up. And he used to make 6 figures, happy family, married, everything was good. Everything was going his way. And he did that salvia, and it screwed up his head. And now he's like, he talks like this, and he really messed up for the rest of his life. So whatever it was, there was something that told me not to do that again. And then I was going to do it again months later. I didn't bring it up. Out of the blue, there's this guy in this chat forum, and he's like, hey, and I said, I did salvia, and that's why I am the way that I am.
That's the universe looking out for you, Rex Bear.
I mean, just it's crazy, man. So did I learn something from those experiences? I certainly learned that the out-of-body experiences are amazing. Out-of-body experiences, natural, organic, not taking any substances whatsoever. Those are incredible. And I've had out-of-body experiences before where I've gone so far out of my body that I felt like the entire universe was about the size of a grapefruit, and it had a bluish aura around it, and it was whitish. And I started here at home, and I just went further and further out, and I could see our planet and everything else just get smaller and smaller and smaller, like a movie. And I went so far out, and I felt this beautiful warmth. And it was just incredible, man. It was incredible. So we're here, Jeff, for a reason. We are in a time right now where everything is kind of, merging and connecting, and we have an opportunity to make this a beautiful place, like a golden age, or we could go down that rabbit hole with what is going on the other side, on the other spectrum. I certainly hope it's still 50-50 at least. Well, if there's more than 50-50, then one side would become greater than the other, and everything would completely destroy itself, in my opinion. But it's like these polarities. I go on a beautiful hike, I see the beautiful mountains and the trees, and then I see all these dead trees at higher elevation, just thousands and thousands and thousands of dead trees. You look at the blue skies, they don't even really look blue anymore because of all the crap that they're spraying. So you look at the medical mafia industrial complex, it's not, what is it, folks? It's a multi-billion, trillion-dollar system. And what good does it do in the overall whole of the health, the quality of life? Now, are there certain things that people need at certain, excuse me one second. Antibiotics. You ever need an antibiotic? Hey, that could save your life. I get it.
Absolutely.
And there's probably plenty of other options as well that are natural that can be done. But I know there's been times in my life where I've had ear infections growing up as a kid that were really bad. They, got me antibiotics. It healed it up. So you break your arm, you got to go see a doctor. I get it. Surgeons, etc. But you look at some of these ingredients and some of these chemicals and products and the pushing of vaccines and what's in the vaccines. It's this industry that's been complete. This is my opinion, folks. You can take it for what you want. This is my opinion. It seems like it's been taken over by something that, how do I put it? Where it's slaves. It's like, okay, how does it get in everybody's life to where it's making just a little bit off of everybody? And then if it can't make a little bit off of everybody, there's a person that I've been talking to that's a Elite Project listener that just got back from the Middle East. His son gets vaccinated 2 weeks before he gets diagnosed with leukemia. His son gets sick. His son has to go to the hospital with a crazy fever. They do a bunch of tests. They say, oh, he's got leukemia. And his son's 2 years old. People shouldn't have to go through this kind of stuff. It's most cancers, according to an article that was put together at Manchester University, most cancers are man-made. Our society, it's like we live in the twilight zone. It can be amazing. And it's like right behind us, we're looking at the beauty, and right behind us, we're looking at this like giant three-headed monster beast system that just wants to consume us and eat our soul for its pleasure and narcissistic feelings. It's very disturbing, Jeff.
It is disturbing. And, it's one thing for a guy like you or I to say these things and point out these facts. But one of my good buddies, Jay Campbell, I think you know Jay, he has a show. He has four very, I was going to say extinguished. That's not the word I'm looking for. Esteemed doctors. And these are four esteemed doctors. These guys are sitting in multi-million-dollar mansions. You can see the cars outside. These are real true doctors. And they're sitting there saying that they, Rex, as doctors, are not allowed. They are literally prohibited. And they're saying this publicly. They're literally prohibited from helping people in preventive medicine. All the hospitals they work for want them to do is to prescribe drugs for people that they don't really need and to force people into surgery. As physicians, they are not allowed to try to help people with preventive medicine. It's not a medical system anymore. It's a sick care management system. And that's beyond the vaccines that they try to stick into all of us. This is how the thing actually functions on a day-to-day basis. They're not there to make us well anymore. They're there to produce profit. And the most profitable things are the drugs and the surgeries. And to hear doctors say this, Rex, it's staggering.
Well, I asked the person that was telling me about his son that's got leukemia or was diagnosed with leukemia, what types of medications he was on. And he sent me a list of these medications. And he said one of them, even after the copay, he's got out of his pocket, he's paying $1,000 something on one of the medications, $1,000. And he says, what happens if there's so many medications that we can't afford all these medications? Then what does the hospital do? Do they say that we're not worthy of our son now, and they're going to have Child Protective Services come in and take him and fill him up with more drugs?
It's just staggering, the things that we're facing. And Rex, I asked this question to George Norrie, and I think you're kind of in a similar position with the great big following you have and all the people you talk to. George gets bombarded every day with all of these stories and all of these things that are bad and all of these things that are scary. And you get the same thing. You get a lot of people sending you information. You get a lot of people asking to come on your show. And a lot of it is scary. A lot of it is not very fun. How do you keep yourself in a place where you're a happy-go-lucky guy, you're a positive guy? Sometimes you get serious because it's a very serious situation that you're in. But when you have all of this information coming at you and all of these things how do you manage it, Rex, and continue to keep yourself in a positive space and continue to try to be excellent to each other and make a difference in the world? How do you keep from getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get a lot of people that give me a hard time for joking and not being serious all the time. And that's how I do it. I don't take everything so serious. Just because I'm from Sirius doesn't mean I am serious. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Swamp Gas from Yellowstone. Yeah, I mean, it's like a ride, man. We're in a ride right now. And actually, it's an amusement park. We're in an amusement park. Which ride do we want to get on? And how long do we want to stay on that ride? So that's how I take it right now. I am learning as much as I can. I'm sharing as much knowledge as I can. And I feel like in my heart that one of my purposes here is to get information that is important, that is suppressed, or maybe just not, maybe it was suppressed at one point. Now people want to know about it, but because it was suppressed 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or whatever, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, but times change. So do people. Maybe that information is important. And if I can find that information and bring it to you, bring it to everybody else that's listening to this podcast and Leak Project podcast, and they can tell their friends, their family, that is important to me. And I've always been that way. That's one thing that I was like even when I was just a little kid. And when I was working for that Fortune 100 company for many years, I was talking about the same stuff during my lunch break. I'm in literally the lunch break, lunchroom. There's 10, sometimes 15 people, sometimes 8 people in there, sometimes less, sometimes more, whatever. I'm talking about the same stuff. And then when I'm waiting for, for the next client or customer to come in, I'm talking to my coworkers about the same stuff. One time I even, one of the district managers said, "Can you please cut down on the conspiracy talk? You're freaking people out." One time, I didn't even mean to. One time, there's a guy that worked there. See, one of the cool things about this job that I used to have, career, whatever you want to call it, swamp gas career, whatever. This was great because I was working with people that were very, like, we're talking people from that used to deal with nuclear codes and underground bases to people that are actors, to people that are in the entertainment industry, to people that have their own businesses. They want to try this industry and see how they can do, because you can make a lot of money in that industry. Like I said, they're some of the guys I was working with and gals were making more money than doctors without
Absolutely.
a college education. And I ended up taking a position with the company that was not the same, but it was a lot more laid back, where I could actually do more research and talk about what I talk about and just kind of let them do a lot of the work. I didn't get paid nearly as much as they did, but I was a lot more just kind of relaxed and, not all intense and high pressure, because I hate high pressure, man. I hate high pressure. And some of those guys were they're sharks.
Yeah.
And so I learned the techniques. Well, you know what I used to do. We'll keep that.
Absolutely. We'll keep it under our hats.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it was a sales job, folks. It was, it wasn't anything bad or anything like that. It was selling vacations, but anyway, there were certain people in that industry that were just sharks. And I had a position to where I could just talk to people for literally 5-10 minutes. And if they were interested, great. And if not, hey, have a fantastic day. So, but anyway, it was really, I was doing the same thing. And I don't even know where I was going with this, but I've always been doing this. I feel passionate about it. If I wasn't doing it at Leak Project, I'd be doing it somewhere else. I was offered, I might have a new opportunity here pretty soon to take this even more mainstream. And the guy asked me, he said, "Well, so what's your story?" He says, you have no broadcasting experience. You don't have any history with entertainment. And I was like, "Not really." I said, this is who I am. So, anyway, it's fun, man. It's fun. Just remember, if you're in a position where you're like, "Wow, this is a scary ride," maybe you can get off the ride, and there's plenty of other rides to take. Use your mind, use discernment. The mind is mightier than the pen is mightier than the sword. And right now, Jeff, we're in a place where, like, you think it happens.
Absolutely.
And be careful, folks, because the more you think about something, the more likely you are to see something along that lines, whether or not it's exactly what you're thinking or side effects of what you're thinking. Jeff, tell me if you've had this happen to you. I'm sure you've had it happen to you many times in the past, but I've noticed for the past year, especially, I will be thinking about somebody that I haven't seen in a long time, whether it's a year or 10 years or even, a month or something like that, or a while. And I'll be thinking about them. And for just the most, like this, within hours, they will contact me via email, via comment on the YouTube channel, via giving me a call, sending me something in the mail. It's just very interesting. So I start thinking about people, and it's almost like you're communicating with people now to a point of, you've got to be real careful who you think about, because you might just call them up.
That's true, Rex. And I think when you're normal, people do that too, just regular people, people doing that aren't even really on this path. But as we get on this path, and as we begin to, become people that start doing meditation, and we begin to become people that start, understanding and seeing behind the curtain. We begin to understand that, we are divine, we're sovereign, we're free, we are creators. And the more we know about it, we really need to take a lot more responsibility, because if you want something to happen, just start thinking about it. And we have to understand that we're always creating. If we think of negative things, we're going to create negative things in our life. If we're thinking of positive things, we're going to create positive things in our life. And if you are looking for something, you will find it and you will make it. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us in one way to be able to manifest good and positive and be excellent to each other type of things in our lives. But we also have to, with any great power comes a great responsibility. We've got a great power now, especially as we learn more about the power of the mind and more about the power of the spirit, that we can learn how to manifest and create great things in our lives and great things for this world. And that's why I'm so, the last few months, of course, I've been on this ride, this particular journey, so it's more real to me. I really think that the universe, the gods, the Elohim, whatever you want to say, want us to find people that we can link up with divinely. And because two people are even more powerful, creative than one person is. And we can have a great opportunity to do this, but also a great responsibility, because if you're thinking about bad stuff or manifesting bad stuff or things that you think are bad, they're going to happen too. And it really becomes a responsibility. And it's nice to have people like you and Wayne and all of our other friends talking about this and allowing us to come to a place where we can understand what's going on. And Rex, no matter what we do, however long we do it, it's things like this that keep us going. Gravity Storm Deborah says, I would not be where I'm at today without Jeff and Rex on this journey. How does that make you feel, Rex Bear?
Wow. Awesome and humbled. It's when I hear stories like that and people's testimonies that they watch your program or Leak Project and it's helped them. It feels great. It's amazing.
And that's really what it's all about. I mean, I know my life is probably a microcosm of yours, but you wake up in the morning, you're having your coffee, and before you can get halfway through, you have people saying a whole bunch of horrible and bad things about you on the channel. And you got to delete, hide these people. And then you get 5 or 6 of these people that talk about how it's life-changing and how they've got hope and how they've got inspiration and how, I'm so glad that I found you, and then I went to Rex, then I went to Wayne, then I went to Heidi, then I went to Jenny, and then I went to Sandra. And it just becomes, it's so nice to see that there really are a lot of bad stuff going on, no doubt about it. A lot of bad people out there, but there's really some good, fine people out in the world today. And Rex, I'm still feeling optimistic about it, because I really think there's still a lot of us out there that care. And there's a lot of us out there that aren't ready to, cut somebody's throat for a loaf of bread. And as bad as it's going to get, I still have this sense in me, the sense of optimism. Do you think I'm Pollyannic, Rex, or do you really think that we can turn this thing around?
Well, we have to.
We have to.
We have no choice. Our future generations, if they even are going to have a chance, we have to start right now. I can show you pictures of miles and miles and miles and miles of devastated forests. I can show you pictures from other people that they've sent me from their necks of the wood, all the way up into British Columbia, Alaska, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, here in Colorado, where there's just forests that are devastated. And then you've got the fracking fields, which smell like remember the fart bombs that you could, like you literally put off in a building and it would stink for hours. It's like one of those meets steroids and the Dirty Clown McDonald's breakfast sandwich in the morning after it's been consumed. It's like that. Well, they've got entire townships now that are getting consumed by these enormous sinkholes. You've got deforestation at an alarming rate. Not only are we cutting down the forest, but then you've got forests that are dying from beetle kill. And it's interesting how at 10,000 feet elevation, it starts really bad, that below that 10,000 feet, the beetles don't really care about it then. It's really bizarre how that works. But anyway, I'm a conspiracy theorist. So yes, we're in an exciting time. And I hope, I pray that we turn things around every single day. Now, when I say pray, people are like, well, Rex, I thought you were agnostic. I thought you were an atheist. Well, I'm certainly not an atheist. I'm agnostic because I don't know. Do I believe in divine providence? Absolutely. Absolutely. I just don't know how complex divine providence is. Now, is divine providence within us and within that spark, at least at the microcosm of the macrocosm? I feel so. Yeah, I think that's our soul. I think that's our spirit. It's connected to source. It's connected to God. It's the light within. Like you said, it's the divinity within. You say that so eloquently. So Jeff, if we don't turn things around, we can go into this Blade Runner future. We're going to be fighting beings that are just like us, but they're robotic in nature. They're mechanical in nature, not biological. We are biological robots. We are literally the original biological artificial intelligence. So if we create a sentient intelligence that thinks it's self-aware, maybe it doesn't have the spark that we have, but we create it, it's self-aware, and then we go after it. I mean, how narcissistic, and I'm looking for a big word here instead of wrong, is that? How bad is that? To create something that becomes self, well, it doesn't have a soul, so we could do whatever we want to it. Well, maybe that's what the beings thought when they created us.
Absolutely.
Maybe they still think that.
Maybe they do. It's a very interesting subject to ponder, that's for sure. Rex, how long ago did you start the Leak Project?
About 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what gave you the idea to do that?
Okay, so I started really blogging heavily back in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. And then a lot of people, after I would leave these blog posts, a lot of people say, hey man, you should start your own website. You know, and I said, okay, I thought about it a little bit, but then I started doing some, I was just helping this roundtable do interviews on a conspiracy forum for, I did that for about a year or so, year and a half. And it was, I really enjoyed it, and then stopped doing that, and then went back working with my other career full time. And then, I don't know, just about a year or so later, a couple years later, I thought to myself, you know, I'm listening to these interviews anyway. I'm listening to George Norrie. I'm listening to Art Bell. I'm listening to John B. Wells. I'm listening to Mel Fabregas on the very, I'm listening to all these people anyway, do all these interviews. And I think I can do just as good of a job. And there's questions that I would like to ask. So I'm going to start doing the interviews myself. And in the past, I was good at it. So I said, hey, I'm gonna give it a shot. So I started doing YouTube videos, and I was doing just like one a week, a couple a week. And I thought, I'm just going to, keep it maybe a couple a week. But then I talked to somebody that said, you should really just start doing as many videos as you want. Start doing 4 or 5 a day, do 10 a day if you want. I thought to myself, why not? If I used to leave that many blogs about the same kind of things, oftentimes talking about nanoparticulates, chemtrails, talking about the difference, the shadow factions that control the scenes, right. The dungeon masters. I used to call them the dungeon masters, and I used to call those nanoparticulates nano gremlins. So, I was talking about this stuff 8 years ago, man. I'm sure you were too. So anyway, that's just, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing it, keep plugging away. And people seem to enjoy the content. I think it's a lot of times they don't have the time and the resources to do the research, because they, unfortunately they have to deal with everything else. And at that time, that's what I was doing anyway, so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to see if I can do it all the time. And, it's interesting because my father-in-law passed a few years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
And when he passed, a couple of days before he passed, I ended up getting in an argument with my boss at my job because he was being a complete jerk. And I called him virtually every name in the book. It felt so good. Like it was building up, because this is the kind of guy that he even told me one time, he doesn't have emotions. He doesn't have much of a conscience. He told me that. He told me he didn't have a conscience. And he is a compulsive liar. And I just saw right through it. So I never liked the guy at all. And hey, God bless you. I just don't like you. It's okay. Yeah. Somebody does. But anyway, so this guy, my father-in-law is dying, and he's being a total jerk to me. So I said, see ya. A lot more words than that, but I said, I'm out of here. After I quit, and I was nervous, but I just said, hey, this gives me more time to do what I think I'm here to do. And that's to help people wake up, to bring people together, to unite, not divide. I'm trying to get out of politics as much as possible. Yeah, I talk about it a little bit, and it's cool. I understand it has its place, but I'm about bringing people together, not separating people, because we're all in this together. We're all in this together, and we need to work together, Jeff.
We do. And speaking of that, do you remember how long ago it was that we met?
A couple years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a couple years ago. And I remember, I don't even know how we met. I think I sent you an email or a message and you responded back. I was very surprised that you did. And I want to talk to you about that in a minute. But I remember one of the things you said to me was, I think I had less than 1,000 subscribers when we met. And you said to me, why don't you make more videos? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Just like that guy said, you make 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 videos a day. I thought you were crazy. I'm like, why would I do that? Who's going to watch all those? But I figured, you know what? Rex is doing a lot better at this than I'm doing at this. So I started making a lot of videos, and within, a couple of years, we've done real well. We're not where you are yet, but that's okay. We've done real well. And I wanted to ask you that, Rex. I mean, here's a guy with less than 1,000 subscribers writing you, sending you a message. I don't know what I did, but it's not just me. You've talked with a lot of people. You've taken a lot of people under your wing. You've mentored a lot of people that have very small channels, and it's really not much in it for you. But you've taken people under your wing, and a lot of those channels now are up in the 10, 20, 30,000 range. Why do you do that? What's in it for you, and what are you thinking?
Well, I don't look at it that way. You said there's nothing in it for me. There's plenty in it for me. Knowledge, friendships, relationships, information. It's a win-win situation. If somebody's going to come on my show, or I'm not going to say my show, if somebody's going to come on the Leak Project that I have a lucky enough opportunity to be a part of and to kind of be the host. I'm the host, so It is what it is. And I'm very thankful that there's so many cool people that listen to the Leak Project. That's why I don't want to say it's my show, because it's not. It's kind of taken a mind of its own. So it's knowledge. It's learning something that can take us to the next level. If somebody has 1 subscriber or no subscribers or no YouTube channel, and they have information to bring to the world that's important, come on the show. Let's do it. And I would like to just throw this out here for everybody that's ever emailed me that I haven't gotten back to. It's not because I don't want to. It's a lot of times I don't even get the emails, or I will read the email and I'm like, okay, I'm going to email this person back in a little bit. And then I get stuck in this, I don't know. I get in the zone. I literally get in the zone. I research, I research podcasts. Sometimes I don't leave my garage more than a couple hours a day. I mean, it's seriously, I mean, when I was living, okay, so, talking about my father-in-law and stuff, I know I joked around about my grandma living with me and stuff. My grandma didn't live with me, folks. That wasn't my grandma's house. If you really thought it was, that's cool. It was my place, and my mother-in-law was living with us because, she was married for 40 years. Her husband dies, and we said, hey, come live with us. So she was with us, but it was a smaller house. And I don't know, maybe they said it was 2,000 square feet. I don't think it was. I think half of that was the garage that I was in, and the garage was filled with most of her stuff. So I'm in this little corner in the garage doing podcasts, just pumping them out 10, 12, 14 hours a day. She's in the living room watching TV on the couch. So, I like to give her space. She kind of took over the couch, and it's a pretty small house considering spending most of my time in the garage there. And by the time that I left, there was a water leak that we had told the landlord about 3 months ago before we moved out. It was, hey, this has got a water leak. Well, by the time we leave, there's like black mold in the garage around the edges and stuff like that right behind me. I was spending tons of time in there. And you know what? I'm glad I did. And I'd do it again. I mean, because it's important. People need to know about this stuff, especially right now. When I had that experience, those experiences I told you about where I went inside and I felt like I met the Yama and it freaked me out. It scared me so bad, Jeff, that I thought to myself, if I don't make a difference, if we don't change the world the way that things are, we're all going to end up like that forever. Yeah. That those few minutes that I felt, people are going to experience that in perpetuity. Yeah. And that's scary, man.
Rex, what do you say to the naysayers that say, oh, Rex is just out there gloom and doom trying to scare everybody?
Hey, that's cool. If that's really what you think, then you get scared easy. You get scared really, really easy. I'm sorry.
I hear people say that about you. And the first thing, why do you, Rex is blooming? I say, first of all, have you ever watched more than 5 minutes of one of Rex's podcasts? Because if anyone says that you're all gloom and doom, they've not watched more than 5 minutes of one of your podcasts, because you do bring information that can be scary. You do bring information that can be a little bit depressing. You do bring information that people need to know. It's much better to know about it than to not know about it. But you have a very, I don't think masterful is too strong of a word, way of giving the bad information, giving the bad news, giving the things that we need to watch out for, weaving in some humor, weaving in some hope, weaving in some inspiration. So instead of leaving people running for the hills, you leave people informed, you leave people inspired, and I think you leave people wanting to tell more people about it. And I think that you really do put into practice your little mantra of trying to be excellent to each other.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And, you know, it is what it is. And to the people that say fear mongering, let me ask you this. Okay. So there is no fear but fear itself. I've heard that saying before. And if that's the case, though, when people say you don't want to have any fear whatsoever, a little bit of fear can be healthy. A little bit of fear can be a good thing. Now, if it's consuming you, that's a completely different story. But if we're just walking around, oh yeah, man, let's do whatever we want. You see all those semi trucks? Well, I'm going to keep drinking. I'm just going to walk because they're going to stop. I have no fear. There's food, boo! You're splattered all over the grill. You're no more. I mean, you got it. And not only that, I mean, geez, look at the world today. Look at how much we're consuming. Oh, don't worry about it, man. No fear. Things will fix itself. What's going to fix it? What and who is going to fix it if there's no fear? Everything's fine. Just sit around, do your thing, play your video games, watch people make $40 million a year shooting hoops, or take a little bit of fear and say, you know what? I'm going to use that as a fire to ignite my inner self. And I'm going to turn that fear into something positive. And I'm going to make it to where I don't need to fear it. I can embrace it. I think it's that beginning point that takes you down. It's like a domino effect. You might have fear at the beginning a little bit, which can be a good thing because you can prepare with that fear. You can be ready. You can learn. If you fear you're going to get your butt kicked and you go out and you learn karate and you become a black belt, but you're the kind of person that you don't mess with anybody. You're a peaceful soul. But if someone comes to try and jump you, well, you had a little bit of fear. So now you learn how to defend yourself. Someone tries to jump you, you put them in a guillotine choke. They take a little nap until the police get there. They cuff them. They go to jail for a couple of days. They calm down. You're safe. They're safe. Everybody's fine. Nobody gets hurt. Everything's okay. Is that bad? Well, you had a little bit of fear. So you're a fear monger, man. It's the closed minds of humanity. Yeah. I get it. It's okay. I still love you.
Rex, if you just walked about a mile and that mile down the road, you saw that the bridge was out, and you're walking you've come about a mile and you see cars coming down the road and you're flagging them down saying, hey, stop. The bridge is out. You're going to go over. You're going to die. That's not a bad thing. That's helping people.
But you'd still be called a conspiracy theorist. You'd still have people that wouldn't believe you, and you'd still have people that would drive us. Oh, we got nothing to worry about, man. No fear. No fear.
Yes, no fear. Rex, you and I went to jail together.
Well, thank goodness it was decommissioned. Because man, I'll tell you, I'd be a lot more. Anyway, I had a blast there, man. That was so cool. I had a great experience there. And
I had a horrible one.
But see, you were like in a position where you were fasting, you hadn't eaten for a long time. I mean, so your body was picking up all sorts of energies that the particles that these foods that we consume kind of block. So you were like, and remember when you were talking about that thing that ran in between your legs and went past you?
Yes.
And then we're talking to.
Yeah, we're outside walking down this sidewalk.
Say it. Tell about it.
We were down. Rex and I were outside. We're walking down the sidewalk, and I saw this thing go between my legs. It was like a black mass, and it was on its front. And as it went between my legs when I was walking, it rolled up and kind of took off. And I literally jumped, Rex. I jumped out of the way. And I don't know if Rex thought I was crazy at that point or not, but I really saw it. And then we got inside the prison. Rex, you take it from there.
And I've got photographic evidence of this, and you can take this image for what you want, but I would say 8 out of 10 people that saw the picture said, man, looks like a ghost looking at your crotch. I mean, because it was
exactly
upside down.
As I described it. And inside, there's a picture of it between Rex's legs doing the same thing that it did to me.
And you were literally talking about that when the other gentleman that was there took a picture. you were talking about the experience that you had with the guy running between your legs. As you're talking about it, this other guy takes a picture and you can see this thing looking between my legs.
Yes.
It's spooky.
It is spooky. It is spooky.
I had my magic underwear on. I just went to a Mormon church.
That's right. So you had your sacred undergarments on. You were safe. There was no problem there. And tell us a little bit about the experience you had that night at that prison.
So I had a blast. I felt like I was in a video game.
You were buzzing. You were so on that night.
It was great. And see, I enjoy that kind of stuff because for some reason, I feel like I'm just going to be okay. I mean, I've told you about that time when I was living in that haunted house in Tacoma, and I had that experience where not only did I hear a freaking demon, but my wife did too. And it sounded like this. I mean, it sounded just like something out of a Hollywood movie. And that night was one of the scariest nights I've ever had. I thought I was in literally some type. I'm going to cut down on the word literally. I've noticed I've been saying that too much. It was like, I feel like I was in a scary movie that entire night. Every time I turned the channel, whether it was the news, whether it was a commercial, whether it was a comedy show like Saturday Night Live, everything was geared around death and murder.
Yeah.
It was so scary. They were making jokes about murder on TV, and I'm thinking to myself, this is disgusting. Terrible. I don't even like to watch scary movies. Once in a while, I might watch a scary, but the most scary movies I don't even like to touch, especially since that night. Something after that night really changed my mindset about a lot of these scary movies that are on the big screen.
Yeah. And I remember because first of all, we were together in the prison, and then we split up and went our different ways. And I had been fasting. I think it was 11 days at that point. I'd been 11 days straight fasting. And I was just getting hammered by, all of this energy was just coming at me. And I, did some live podcasts, and I literally went out and was sitting in my car, like sleeping, exhausted. And Rex came out and said, "Hey man, what's going on?" Rex cared enough to come out and check me out. And then we went back in together and did some more work, but it was really a very interesting night.
We busted out the Ouija board we busted out a Ouija board in this one room, which was supposed to be where one of the most aggressive criminals was, or inmates. And right. This person, this being, this spirit, or his, part of his soul or something is still there, and was talking with Jeff and actually appreciated the fact that you're a bodybuilder. And interesting enough, we were taking separate tours, and I felt the energy around the same location that you did. And there was a separate room, folks, not even a separate room. There was a separate building at this facility, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Brushy Mountain, Tennessee. And that is an interesting area. They watch people like hawks out there, everybody. You get into that town, there's one way in and there's one way out, and they're watching you. But anyway, so we get in there, and there's this other building that's the newest building there. Right. I'm talking about the decommissioned prison. Yes. There's a separate building, and it's the newest building from that plant, from the area, and they only closed it down 10 years ago, and it looked like it was 80 years old. I mean, it was rusted out. It was in the worst shape. And that's where they housed the most aggressive inmates, and that is the most haunted place in the entire area where all these prison buildings are located. And then I find out,
by the way, they're located on the American Indian grounds, and they slaughtered all the American Indians there. So it's a double whammy.
Yep. And remember, one of the people that works there says they talked about the experience where they saw a gray in in the cafeteria area and underneath the cafeteria, what did they call that area underneath the cafeteria? Do you remember?
No, I can't remember.
Okay. So we go there, and there's the cafeteria, and underneath the cafeteria, they talked about, they saw this gray in the doorway. And as soon as she said that, I said, "Is this place built on Native American grounds, Native American burial grounds?" And they said, "Yep." And that's how I knew it. That sparked it for me. I knew right there. It's interesting, Jeff, how a lot of times some of these very haunted places, or places where prisons are put, and then they're decommissioned, and then they become even more haunted, they're built over these certain areas that have a lot of bloodshed. And, you know, that's another thing that's interesting. Like we're in the Matrix. I think about this. Okay. There's this place in San Antonio where there's a blood bank now at this location in San Antonio. But before that blood bank was there was a house there where this guy goes crazy and he becomes an axe murderer in his house.
Oh no.
So they take the house down and they build a blood bank over it. I mean, what? Weird.
And
why not an auto shop?
Why not an auto shop? And the thing that also struck me was the hole, you know, where they throw the worst prisoners in these little, I mean, it was horrific things that we do to people. The hole is located, ladies and gentlemen, wait for it, beneath the chapel. And that just was like crazy to me. But Rex, it was that experience. You know, I said to Sandra the other day, I wish I hadn't have gone. It was so, it was just a bad experience for me, but I'm glad I did go because I saw and I understood and I realized that I've retired from ghost hunting / paranormal stuff. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'll still work with people on an individual basis, things like that, but I'm not going to go on any more ghost hunts. I'm not going to do any more paranormal investigations. I'll leave that to Rex Bear and more intrepid souls. But Rex, that night showed me that it's just not for me.
I get it. I hope that I never get to that point because for, you know, right now to me, I think it's exciting. And I know where you're at though, in the sense of what you've told me, you've been doing this for years. So you're in a different position and you've been there, done that. You've seen things where people lifting up in the middle, you know, the middle of the jungle and stuff like that. Just crazy stuff you've told me about that definitely matches, if not eclipses some of the stories that I've talked about. So I get it. I haven't had a whole lot of ghost hunts, just the experiences that have been in my own house. I mean, that house that I lived in Tacoma, that was crazy haunted. It was very bizarre. And it was like walking into the energy was so dense. I told you about that time I picked up that used copy of the 72 Lesser Keys of Solomon.
You did.
That was interesting.
Powerful stuff.
It was powerful. Yeah, it was weird. I'll say it real quick. Just
please do.
Okay, so I pick up a 72 Lesser Keys of Solomon file from 1913 from Mathers, and I think Crowley and Mathers. I pick up a used copy 1913 on eBay for $100. I'm like, wow, what a deal! All the other ones are going for $200-$400. I get it in my house. I open it up. Immediately, it feels like the air and the energy in the house just gets dense. It gets thick. You can feel it. And when I had it in the house, we had it in the house for a few weeks. My mind, the things that I was thinking in my mind were just like, why am I thinking this stuff? Like freaky stuff, you know, I'm like that I never would have before. I'm like, I shouldn't be thinking this kind of stuff. And I got to get rid of this book. So I get rid of the book. And the day I get rid of the book, my wife goes, hey, does it feel different in here? Doesn't it just feel lighter? And I'm like, oh yeah.
That's amazing.
By the way, I just got rid of a haunted book. And that house, I think it left something in the house, but I think there was also stuff that was attached to that book that went with the book. But there was stuff in that house before I even got the book. I mean, that house, I talked to the neighbors, that had lived next door for 40 something years. They said that they had seen 6 different couples in that house get a divorce while they were by the time they left that house. 6 different couples in 40 years.
There are some places that are just cursed. That's the way it is. And Rex, I've heard probably in the last 6 months, I've probably heard this or read this 4 or 5 times. People saying that you are like the new Art Bell. How do you respond to that?
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
What a compliment. I mean, that's one of the nicest compliments you could give me. And Art Bell, bless his heart, bless his soul, passed on Friday the 13th at the age of 72. They said that he had a drug overdose. I mean, I don't know if that's the official story. I don't know what happened there. I didn't know that he was even, I didn't know he did drugs. But Art Bell, what a pioneer, what an incredible person. And I think that is just so cool that he changed the world as much as he did out of his own house. You know, I met the neighbors out here, and wonderful people. They moved here from San Diego, very nice. And they were talking about just all the neighbors and stuff in the area. Like, oh, you need a good mechanic? Go to John. Oh, if the guy up the street. So the guy up the street from me, is a retired CIA. He's like 92 years old. And I said, I'll bet you get some good stories from him. They're like, yeah, we drink beers with him once in a while. He'll start talking about something, then he'll forget mid-sentence and he gets all upset. But then at the very end, so they were talking about the weather and the snowpack and how there's been a lot less snow and the weather's been really weird. And as he's talking about this, I'm wanting to talk about the chemtrails, the stratospheric aerosol injections. I'm wanting to say, do you ever look up at the skies and see that it ain't real clouds anymore? So you're not in Kansas or Colorado, but I didn't, and finally at the end, when we're done talking, I finally said it. And I'm like, yeah, it's all that weather modification. That's all the stratospheric aerosol injections. And he goes, what? I go, it's all the chemicals. Huh? I go, see, that's why that's why I don't really want people to know what I do here in this small town, because they don't know what I'm talking about anyway. Right. But then he goes, because he kept trying to get, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do for work? But then at the very end, he says, yeah, I'm a fan of Art Bell.
Oh,
I told him what I did. I said, I'm kind of like, I do podcasts similar to Art Bell. I said something like that. He goes, oh yeah, I love Art Bell. I used to listen to Art Bell. Me and my wife used to listen to Art Bell all the time. So even people that don't know what chemtrails are know who Art Bell is. So that's awesome.
That is. Personally, having listened to Art and listened to George Norrie, I would say you're more of a cross between the two, because Art style was, he had more of an agenda. He'd have guests on, but Art wanted to put out what his agenda was and what his thoughts were a lot too. George is on the other end of the spectrum. He just wants the guests to bring out what they believe. And you're kind of a mix between the two. You're a lot like George. When your guests come on, you just want them to tell their story and share their information. But then you're a little bit like Art too, because you bring in some things that you want to present too. So I think you've got a real good mixture and a real good blend between two of the great broadcasters, not only in paranormal and alternative information history, but in plain old radio broadcasting history as a whole.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I actually paid you to say that. So that's a disclaimer, ladies and gentlemen.
And I hope the check doesn't bounce.
Me too. It might.
Rex, if people want to learn more about the Leak Project, more about Rex Bear, where do they go? What do they do?
Leakproject.com is the best way to get access to all the podcasts, because I think there's about 200 exclusive shows, over 1,900 podcasts, leakproject.com. You can also go, there's a lot of people that will leave pages of information in the comment section. So I'd really like to see the forums pick up there. I've got a really cool forums section of the Leak Project. It's leakproject.com/forums. So feel free. You can sign up for free. You can, if it's constructive, if it's, I don't want any, if it's anything that's not appropriate, I'm just going to delete it. But I think that most people listen to your program, most people listen to Leak Project, they know what's constructive. They know what to do. There's always a few trolls out there, but also, go to Leak Project, get access to the exclusive content. You can download the podcasts. They're streamable. They're ad free. If you want to spend $10 a month, or if you want to, drop $50 for the whole year, you'll get access to all the shows for the whole year. You can do it monthly for $10, and you can download all the shows also. And the caps, there's a lot of people asking about these caps. You're wearing an MK1, or is that an MK2? Oh, that's an MK. That's an MK1, I think. Yeah, you've got the MK1, which is the full tinfoil carbon fiber logo with the sigil that's got the protective hand and the eye that sees through the veil of deceit. And it's also got a 5G shielding. It's got a fabric liner that helps block up to 30 gigahertz. Up to 30. So you need to get one of these things, or not, but it's always fun to have a tinfoil hat. They're handmade in the United Kingdom. And these new ones this is a reflective color, like this will reflect in the dark. So you can see this a little bit in the dark, it'll light up. And the liners are so cool, because the liners will actually block up to 30 gigahertz, which is in the 5G spectrum. So I think that's really cool. So not only do they look cool, but there's also function with them. And you can go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord. Also, I've got a podcast show coming up, exclusive. It's going to be available via like iTunes and a bunch of other platforms. So I shouldn't say exclusive. I was looking for a different word there. They're going to be 1 hour shows. It's going to be 3 days a week, and they're going to be available iTunes and other platforms as well. So that's starting like next week. And youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord.
Excellent. Sounds like there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. And Rex, I've taken, I like to say I'm the second hardest working man on YouTube. Rex Bear is the first hardest working man. And I just went over 1,500 videos, Rex, so I'm taking your advice. We're cranking them out as we can.
Nice. I mean, that's awesome. Think about that. You've got 1,500 gems with knowledge and information that are timeless. People can watch them. They can go to, I mean, first of all, you've got a really cool YouTube channel. And I like your approach to, looking at things in a more of a positive light. Not like we're born sinners. We're going to go to hell. But you take the Bible and you look at it as, hey, you know what? We have divinity within. We can choose. Our good deeds do make a difference, and our Christ consciousness is within. So I think that's awesome.
Excellent. Well, Rex, I do owe you a debt of gratitude. I feel like you're my mentor. You really changed my life and changed this channel and have helped me reach a lot more people. Introduced me to great people like Heidi and Jenny and Wayne, and I could just go on and on with that list. So thank you very much for your friendship. Thank you very much for all the help. And if you folks are ever wondering about Rex Bear, I can say that he's a real stand-up guy, and he is one of the people that does believe in giving back, and he is a credit to the YouTube community. So with that, Rex, it's been my pleasure to have you on the show today. And I salute everybody here that's seeking after truth. And I do want to say love and light to you, and the divinity in me does recognize the divinity in you. And Rex, please take us out with your classic exhortation that always comes at the end of all of your shows.
Act, we come in peace. We come in peace. Harp on.
And be.
Oh. See, I just got 5G'd. Ladies and gentlemen, be the change you want to see.
And be excellent to each other, right?
Bill and Ted. We're like Bill and Ted, man.
Absolutely. For Rex Bear, I'm
We're
Jeffrey
Bill and
Doherty.
Ted right here.
Thanks for being with us. Rex, sit there for a minute if you would so I can say goodbye to you. Thanks to all of you folks. Love and light. We appreciate you very much.